Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to begin with chapter 32, verse 4. That's the beginning of Parshas Vayishlach. And just so to make sure we're on the same page, Yaakov has left the house of Lavan, and he's on his way back to the home of his parents. And he is going to have an encounter with his brother Esav. Now, the last time he had an encounter with Esav, Esav swore to kill Yaakov once Yitzchak would die. So this is not an encounter Yaakov was looking forward to. The Ramban, he has an introduction to this parsha, and the Ramban says, Nichtava haparsha azos, this section is written, quiet, Lodia, to teach, Ki hitzil HaKadosh Baruch Hu es avdo, u'ga'alo miyad chazak mimenu. This is an important section in the Torah because we learn from here that the servant of God, Yaakov, was saved by Hashem, and Hashem redeemed him, even though circumstances would seem to say that he didn't stand much of a chance against Esav. Vayishlach malach vayatzileu, when he sent his angel and saved Yaakov. Ulalamdenu od, shulo batach b'tzidkaso, v'ishtado ba'atzala b'chol yicholto, a very, very important lesson. Yaakov didn't sit at home and say, well, I'm a pretty pious person and God runs the world, so God should help. He did everything he could, what we call his shtadlus. He did everything he could to make sure that he would be safe. V'yesh ba'od remes l'doros, k'kol asher ira lo avinu im Esav achiv, yera lanu tamid im bnei Esav. Remember, this is a major theme of the Ramban in the book of Bereshis, that things that happen with the patriarchs and matriarchs happen again in future generations. That you have to be quiet. The things that happen with, and that the idea is that Esav would have descendants that would cause problems for the Jewish people. It's appropriate for us to hold on to the path of our righteous predecessor Yaakov. We should take a page from his book, and we should do the three things that he did. This is such a famous trio. L'tfila, he davened that Hashem should save him. When we're in trouble, heaven forbid, we should always need to daven. Uladoron, he tried to appease Esav. He sent him gifts, appeasement. Some people call it appeasement. Some people call it bribery. It probably depends on the context. But the point is, you might say that that's beneath us. You might say that, why should we give gifts to them? No, you know what? If it'll bring us peace, it's worth it. And the third is, Ulatzala b'derech muchama. Be ready to fight if need be. Prayer, appeasement, and readiness to fight. Livroach ulinotzel. Whether it be to fight, whether it be to flee, but practically speaking, a plan to succeed. Okay, let's go on to, let's see inside, verse 4. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav. Yaakov sent messengers before him, Esav achiv, to Esav his brother, Arta Seir stay Edom, to the land of Seir. Verse 5. Vaytzavo samle more, and Yaakov instructed the messengers, saying, Ko samrun laduni le'Esav. So you should say to my master Esav, Ko amar avdecha Yaakov. So says your servant Yaakov. Im Lavan garti. I have lived with Lavan, va'ichar ad ata, and I have tarried up until this point. Now, we spoke about appeasement. Yaakov is definitely using words that sound like appeasement. He's talking about his master. He's referring to himself as Esav's servant. It sort of is a little bit striking that he's using these types of languages. So there's an interesting Ramban over here. Ramban on Pasuk Hey. It's about 5 lines into the Ramban on Pasuk Hey. V'da, you should know. Ki hakavod hazeh sheYaakov oseh lo'achiv. This honor which Yaakov paid to his brother Esav in his fear of him, referring to himself as the servant of Esav, referring to Esav as his master. Bavur ki aminag b'tzoir lases malo v'kavod ela b'chor ki'iluhu aviv. The normal thing is for a younger sibling to give honor to the oldest sibling as if the older sibling is the parent. Kasher Ramzalonu Gamatora, the Rabos Achicha Gadol. There's a famous drasha. I brought children here just to be a visual aid for everybody. There's a famous drasha, Kabenes Avicha Ve'esimecha, that we need to honor our parents, and there's a drush of the S is that we need to honor the oldest sibling in a sense akin to honoring the parents, not to the same level, of course, but at any rate, that's a concept that the younger sibling is supposed to give honor to the older sibling. Vine Yaakov lakach b'choraso v'espir chaso. Yaakov took the birthright of Esav. Yaakov, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, Yaakov gave a bracha to Esav. The Esav sote moso aleim. Okay, be quiet. Esav hates Yaakov for this. The ata hayamarelo kilu eina machira hi etzlo klum. So it's very significant that Yaakov is carrying himself with humility towards Esav because he's showing Esav that it's as if the sale never happened. This is very significant here that Yaakov is treating Esav with deference because it seems, because it seems to imply when Yaakov treats Esav with deference that you're still the older brother and the fact that I bought the birthright is insignificant. That seems to be the point, and that's a way to appease Esav. Okay, moving on. Verse 8. So the angels have, well, let's just do verse 7. So Yaakov sent the angels to send this, not the angels, Yaakov sent his messengers to send this message to Esav, very much trying to appease Esav, very much humbling himself before Esav, sending livestock as a gift to Esav. That's the appeasement we were speaking about. In verse 7, Vayashuva malachim al Yaakov limor, the messengers returned to Yaakov, and they said to him, Banu elachicha el Esav, we have come to your brother Esav, v'gam holech likrascha. Well, he's still coming. He didn't turn around. V'arba me'os ishimo. Oh, by the way, he has 400 men with him, which doesn't sound like a family get-together. That's not what it sounds like. Even though if you ever hear Mrs. Sperling talk about the old Sperling family get-togethers, maybe 400 men was normal for the Sperling family get-togethers. It could be, but probably not in Esav's context. Verse 8, Vayira Yaakov ma'od vayetzer lo. Yaakov became very frightened. Vayachatz esa'am asher ito. He split up the group with him. Esatzom v'eshabakor v'agmalim l'shnei machanos. So he split up his whole accompanying group, including the livestock, into two camps. Verse 9, he said, if Esav comes to one of the camps and strikes that group, then the other camp will be able to escape. So Yaakov is very afraid, and Yaakov makes very concrete plans for what happens if Esav attacks. Okay, Ramban on Pasuk Ches, Vayira Yaakov ma'od. What now made him very afraid? I mean, he knew they were coming towards Esav. Why is the fear only expressed now? Bavur sha'amrulo ki yotza Esav me'iro v'hu ba likras Yaakov. So first of all, up until this moment, it was like theoretical. Who knows? Maybe Esav went somewhere else. Maybe Esav's on a trip. But now the messengers come back and say, oh yeah, Esav's on your line of path. And by the way, he's on his way to you. It's not only that Yaakov is about to have an encounter with Esav, but Esav is bringing with him 400 men. So why is he bringing with him 400 men? Yaakov now became very frightened for his life. Because he said that he only is bringing all these people to fight with me. That must be why he's bringing all these people. Now, the Ramban goes on further. What I think in this matter is, Ki Esav lo kibel hashluchim kahogen v'lo ishkiach aleim. The Ramban says, I think it's more than that. It seems to be that Esav did not really accept or receive the messengers. He didn't really pay attention to the messengers. Can you sit down here? V'ulai, thank you. Lo hayu lefanav, ki lo nasan reshush she'yavo lefanav, v'dabri mo klal. In other words, the messengers didn't come back and say, here's how our conversation went with Esav. Okay, the messengers didn't come back and say, here's how our conversation went with Esav. The messengers basically said, yeah, Esav's on his way, which either implies that they said their spiel and Esav totally ignored them, or maybe even worse, maybe they weren't even given the opportunity to say their spiel to Esav. They came up to the desk and Esav's secretary said, I'm sorry, Esav's very busy. He doesn't have time for Yaakov's emissaries. What does that mean? He haya hakasuv misaper sheshoal lahem ma shlomachi u'main yano v'nyane beiso b'ina v'nyane beiso banav v'karulo b'shlomo v'amrulo kani holich l'kraso l'oso v'hem hayim agidim kain liYaakov. If Esav would remotely respond in kind to Yaakov's message, he would have asked questions. He would have said, how is Yaakov doing? What's going on with Yaakov? Send Yaakov this message. And there was none of the above. So the Ramban says this is more than Esav is on his way. This is more than Esav sent 400 people. Esav was totally disinterested in Yaakov's message. There's no message that the messengers relayed back from Esav to Yaakov. Obviously, Esav is still very angry at Yaakov. And it must be that he's brought this military group to do ill to Yaakov. By the way, what that also means, says the Ramban, is when the messengers say that Esav is on his way to greet you, what it means is they did some research within the camp. They didn't have much of a conversation with Esav. It sure doesn't sound that way. But they looked around, they asked around, and it's very clear that they're on their way to encounter Yaakov. V'zeh tam v'gam. In other words, they say, we came to your brother Esav, and also he's coming to greet you. What do you mean that also he's coming to greet you? Ki amru banu alachicho Esav, v'lo ana osanu davar, v'lo shalach l'cha divrei shalom. Because there's actually two statements being made here. The first thing they're saying is, we went to Esav, and he had nothing to say back to us. He didn't send you regards. That's a message in its own right. Now, there's a second thing we want to tell you. Not only did he not respond warmly to your message, he's also coming to greet you with military might. Therefore, Yaakov became extremely afraid. And Yaakov became very, very concerned. V'kach amru Rabbeinu, our rabbis teach, ki ashluchim hikiru bo sina, that the messengers recognized resentment from Esav. Amru, they said, banu alachichol Esav, ata noi bo ka'ach, v'noi mimcha ke'esav. I'm sure many of you have heard of this famous medrash before. They say to Yaakov, we came to your brother Esav. Yeah, we know Esav is Yaakov's brother. But the pshat is, we came in representing you, relating to Esav as your brother, and he just represented himself as Esav. Okay. Aval b'sof kashera kavod hagalosh asol Yaakov v'asher hishbil atzmo lefanav shishtach va'aretz Hashem v'pa'amim mirachok ad gishtoi love nichmeru rachamav. So what did the trick? I mean, Esav ultimately is at peace with Yaakov. So it's because when he actually sees Yaakov, and Yaakov bows to him so many times and clearly humbles himself, that's when Esav takes a different attitude. So we discussed this morning the Ramban's message as to the timeless lessons of this week's Parsha. We discussed that which Yaakov, the reason Yaakov so humbles himself before Esav. We also discussed what exactly Yaakov was afraid of. Why was Yaakov more afraid when the messengers came back? Okay, I just need to turn off the recording, girls.